This is Parker Hesse.
This is Sam Branks.
You have the pleasure of listening to Hawkeyes and Tallboys. Cheers, motherfuckers.
Welcome to the Hawkeyes and Tallboys podcast, featuring your hosts, Beau Freeborn.
You know, guys, even though we get 2 conference losses, we're still going to end up 9-3. We're going to win the West, for sure.
Dylan Pond.
Here's the thing, fellas. I'm going with it. 12-0, baby. We're going to do it. Let's fucking go. Woo!
And Rob Wall.
I mean, that would be shocking. But we can do it. I mean, I think we can.
So crack a tall boy and go Hawks.
Welcome back. We're back in with another episode of Hawkeyes and Tallboys. My name's Rob.
I'm Dylan. And I'm Beau.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
We are having ourselves another beer and another episode, and we need to get down to this past weekend, guys. We played.
Yeah, it's safe to say we needed a beer, isn't it, Rob?
Yes.
We probably could have used about 12 beers.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, we have a big episode today for you, listeners. We want to go over what happened last week at Purdue and West Lafayette. We want to talk about everything that went wrong there and what we thought we could look forward to for this next game. We have some mailbag questions we like to get to, so thank you so much for everyone for submitting mailbag questions to us. We love to answer them on air for you guys. And of course, we need to get to this weekend's matchup, another Big Ten opponent in Northwestern. And obviously this entire season is nothing but Big Ten opponents. So every game means a lot or means nothing, as some people think that this whole season is a wash. So
not us, Rob.
We take it real serious, and we're here to break it down with you guys. So let's rewind to last weekend, October 24th, last Saturday. So this is the point where I would have a sound effect if I had one, but I'm just going to make one up. So, okay. So the Hawkeyes lost to Purdue 20-24. It was a close game throughout, but there were some things that I was happy to see the Hawks do. And then there were some, obviously, a lot of glaring mistakes that we made, unfortunately. Ended up losing us the game at the end. And so we want to get into that. In general, let's go ahead and send it over to Beau. What did you think about this last weekend's game?
Well, Rob, I think you said it. I mean, there's a lot of good things to see, a lot of bad things to see, but all in all, it's the first game of the season. So, to be honest, it's on the coaching to get them all ready for the first game of the season. But to be honest, Rob, I think we talked about this last week. We highlighted it as a potential, strong point, but honestly, I didn't think our defense got it done. I think, we talked about how good that defensive line was going to be, and we didn't see much pressure at all. Our linebackers played exceptionally well, knowing that Jack Campbell is out, but our secondary, to be honest, kind of let us down with, letting David Bell catch, 13 receptions for 121 yards. I mean, dude went off.
Yeah. No, he absolutely went off, Beau, and I echo that sentiment too. The fact that we lost A.J. Epinesa to the draft, a year early, and losing Christian Welch hurt this defense a lot more than I thought it was going to. That was just tough to see. We had a difficult time getting a pass rush. You didn't see those guys disrupting the quarterback as much as you would like to see. So I echo that sentiment. But the thing that really sticks out to me, guys, is, the turnovers and the penalties. I've never seen a Kirk Ferentz coach team. I don't know if I've ever seen a Kirk Ferentz coach team commit 10 penalties, and that ends up costing you 100 yards, which is obviously the difference in this game. And, if you want to go ahead and, shrug off the penalties, which I think is asinine, but if you want to shrug those off, then let's look at the 2 fumbles, and especially, one in the red zone with Tyler Goodson, and then the other one with Mekhi Sargent, approaching the red zone, what could have been, a game-winning drive essentially, or, putting the nail in the coffin, so to speak. So that's just tough ways to lose. It's extremely frustrating. It shows a lack of discipline. it shows a lack of preparedness, which, I think in this situation, you have to put on the coaching staff. But then again, you think about it, guys, and, how much does that lack of having spring ball, having those extra practices throughout the fall, when we thought we weren't going to have a season, I think we saw that Saturday, how much that really affects those guys and how much that affects a developmental program like the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Well, and going back to the spring and even just before Big Ten football started, I mean, we didn't know for however many months that we weren't going to play football, So how easy is that as a coach to say, okay, yeah, I think we're going to play in the spring. You guys just keep trying to do the best you can to stay conditioned. Well, okay, here we go. Now it's sprung on us. Now we got to get ready in a couple weeks. Are we going to be prepared? How do we prepare, et cetera? So I almost think that we expected a couple of penalties, a couple of growing pains, but with a senior, junior, experience dominated team, I guess I didn't expect that many mistakes to happen.
No, neither did I. And frankly, at this point, it just kind of is what it is. But watching it, made you want to put a bullet in the brain. God, it was horrible.
Absolutely. It was unbelievable. For me, watching the game, we looked like a team that hadn't practiced a lot. I think we had like 10 penalties throughout the game, there's going to be penalties in any matchup like this. You could make that argument for Purdue. They didn't have a lot of time to prepare either. But I mean, the first thing I thought of, and me being a Bears fan, the first thing I thought of at the end of this game when we lost it was just like that classic quote from that Arizona Cardinals coach where he's like, they are who we thought they were.
Dennis Green. Yeah, no, that was Dennis Green, I'm thinking, Rob. But no, I completely agree. And I can live with penalties when guys are playing hard. And I'm not saying the Hawks weren't playing hard on Saturday because I don't think that's it whatsoever. But, there was something they told us back in my playing days, God, 400 years ago, that, there's a difference. The physical mistakes are going to happen. It's the mental mistakes that cost you games. And that's what we saw there. The untimely false starts, the drive killers there. And, I mean, those are what stick with me and just piss me off. And, nonetheless, I know the guys came in on Sunday, watched the film, and they're going to learn from it. And, another week of practice under their belt's only going to help them. But, God, that was frustrating to see.
Well, the tough part for me, too, is scoring-wise, right? So we put up 17 points in the second quarter. So, obviously, 17 points. We're leading at halftime, 17-14. Okay, feeling pretty good about the second half. Then we go out, we don't score at all in the third quarter, and then we put up a field goal in the fourth quarter due to, like you said, a couple of turnovers. And it's like, man, that's tough for a highly potent offense, to only put up, 20 points total, but still get held to 3 points in the second half.
And, and you give credit where credit's due there. I think, I don't want to say we necessarily shrugged off Diaco, as the new D coordinator coming in at Purdue. And their defense wasn't horrible, I wouldn't say before, but nonetheless, he had them ready to go. And,
the unfortunate thing about it is, for me, when I was watching the game, I just could not believe how much they threw to David Bell. It was like watching last year's game. Like, I was like, okay, yeah, he is their guy. Like, he's going to see the ball. But I just could not believe how many times he was catching the ball. And, like, he had a touchdown, and, I was like, okay, all right, he's going to have his, you know what I mean? He's the guy. But then the second touchdown, I was like, okay, like, let's maybe try to figure out something. Let's make a halftime adjustment. And then the third touchdown that they had to him, like, it looked like Dane Belton or I can't remember.
So, yep, I know what you're talking about, where Dane Belton and Barrington Wade had that miscommunication there in the end zone.
Yeah, and it looked like they were playing zone, and he was just free. He went right past the linebacker and was wide open in the end zone. And I was just like, David Bell again? Like, we know where he's going to throw the ball. They're going to throw the ball to him. Like, if we could have shut that part down, or at least tried to, it didn't look like to me that we really did a very good job of trying to contain him.
What's
really
crazy?
Their only guy.
What's crazy too is that he could have had an 84-yard touchdown pass in the second quarter, if not for the quarterback throwing him too. He had us beat by 10 yards in coverage in the second quarter. overthrow, forces a punt, Iowa gets the ball back, goes down and scores. So it's like, how do you take that pivotal point? But looking at that, it's like, man, this kid's a freaking freak and he's just killing us.
Yeah, and you touched on it, Rob, about why they couldn't stop that. Well, in the Big Ten, it seems like with 90% of the teams in this conference, to really have a lot of success, and especially Iowa, throwing the ball, is you got to be able to run the ball. And Purdue did that exceptionally well. You look at Sander Horvath, the running back, kind of almost seemed like he came out of nowhere, but comes out and, puts up 120 something yards on 21 carries, I think it was. I don't have the stats in front. Oh, yeah. I do have the stats in front.
No, yeah, and honestly, that might be a good segue. I mean, we could let's hit the stats real quick. We had Xander Horvath, you're absolutely right, Dill, 21 carries for 129 yards. He averaged 6.1 a carry. His longest was 33 against us. I mean, that's
a killer right there.
Their quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, 31 for 50 attempts for 282 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. He had a QBR of 65. Obviously, we mentioned David Bell. He had 13 receptions, 121 yards, 3 touchdowns. They also had a Milton Wright, who had 7 receptions for 85 yards, which isn't anything. But, I mean, they were just throwing the ball a lot. I mean, obviously, Xander Horvath was having his way, but, for a bend but don't break defense, it seemed like we really were bending a lot.
And we broke a lot.
Yeah. Well, and on a better note, let's end this on a positive note. Rob,
what do we do right?
What do you think that you saw from that game that was positive that you can look at and say, all right, I feel pretty good about this going forward? What do you think?
Well, good things about what I saw. I liked watching Spencer Petras play. I really thought that, he seemed to have a good idea of like where things needed to go. He had a decent game. You can't really say too much about, he didn't throw a touchdown, but he was 22 for 39 for 265 yards. It's odd that he threw the ball 39 times and he plays, quarterback for Iowa. But I thought that he didn't look absolutely terrible. So I was happy about that. Obviously, I'd be remiss to not mention Tyler Goodson. He ran the ball 16 times for 77 yards. He averaged 4.8 a carry. That's decent. Mekhi Sargent only ran the ball 11 times for 71 yards and 6.5 yards a carry, and he had a touchdown. And you can't really say anything bad about Sam Laporta, who came out and he caught 5 balls for 71 yards. So just looking at the stats there, it seemed like our offense was rolling. We just put the ball on the ground too much. And if you're going to fumble the ball like that, I still think we should have continued to feed the ball to Tyler Goodson and those guys. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, what did you think we did right, Dill?
I think the main positive that we can take out of this game is that we're only playing 9 games this season. Kidding.
Damn.
That
that is morbid. If 2020 couldn't get any worse.
No, you touched on it, Rob, but the thing I was excited about is seeing the run game. I think we figured we were going to be able to run the ball and have some success doing it. And, typically when Iowa Hawkeye football teams run for 100 yards or more, I forget what the old stat was, but I think they'd lost like 1 game in the last 6 years or whatever. And, the Hawks did that essentially on Saturday. So, they put themselves in a position to win where a couple turnovers, a couple penalties ended up biting them in the ass. But nonetheless, I love seeing us be able to run the football. I think that's going to open up the passing game for us versus Northwestern and throughout the rest of the season.
I will stay on the offensive side, but to be honest with you, I think my bright point of it was our offensive line. Other than all those penalties, they had a solid run game. They gave Petras a ton of time, and honestly, they all looked pretty damn good, given a couple plays. But again, I think the offensive line play was unbelievable.
And the one thing I will disagree with you on there, well, is I agree. I thought the offensive line looked good. In particular, I thought, Tyler Linderbaum looked great. I thought Alaric Jackson looked pretty good too. The 2 exclamation points, I think, on this offensive line, is going to be that right tackle spot. And you might have heard this one you might have heard me say this 12 times last year, but the left guard spot. My God, we have got to get that figured out. I thought we had Landon or Levi Paulson back there in a few different times on Saturday. So, that's got to get figured out, I think, for the most part. You saw Banwart get blown up a few times, and, again, that's going to happen. His first game in over a year. Like, I get that. That's going to happen. I thought Shooter looked on and off. He looked okay. I frankly just was not impressed with Coy Cronk throughout the game. I think he came on later in the game, but the way he started, I don't think it's where he wanted to be. And coming to a new system, I get it. So that's going to come with time. But I definitely think you're right. I think the offensive line is going to be a positive for this team, but it's not there yet.
Well, and you said injuries too, especially with Cole Banwart. So is Coy Cronk. He's coming off a big-time knee surgery too. So you got to give him some credit there too.
But yeah.
But I agree 100% with you. I think he definitely got better throughout the game too. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I really liked what we did with the depth chart this week, and we can get into that a little bit later. But I really like moving Mark Kallenberger to the guard.
Yes.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, same. That's what I was going to rant about this later, but I'm okay with doing it now. Like if it's not broke, why are we fixing it? So they move him to left tackle. I get that's going to be his position, in the NFL and moving forward. I get that. But that dude last year versus USC, like coming on the end of the year, kicked ass in that guard spot. It's like, why mess with that? Especially if we got two, essentially surefire NFL draft picks at tackles right now. Fuck, throw them in there at guard.
Find a way to get them on the field.
You got the best 5 guys on the field, and that's been their mantra forever. Is that's what they're going to do, and they're going to figure positions out later. Why not do that? Well, and clearly they adjusted, so they must be listening to me.
Avid listeners of Hawkeyes and Tallboys, thanks.
Yeah, thank you to the Hawkeye coaching staff for tuning in every week and taking our advice. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
But no, closing thoughts, guys. For this game, I really feel like, and I feel like you could say this about any Hawkeye game that you watch. And but literally, if we don't turn the ball over, if we don't put the ball down in the red zone those 2 times, that's 2 touchdowns. At least that's 2 field goals. We still win this game. I felt like we were ahead the entire game. The thing that hurts me the most is that, one, I said it last week. I'm saying it this week. I'll probably say it next year when we see him again. But Purdue just always seems to find a way to hang around. And it's always like a scramble at the end of the game. And I just hate Purdue because of it. It's just they're like our little brother. You know what I mean? They'll maybe beat us in one random game like last weekend. And they're going to go through the rest of the Big Ten and they're going to get their asses kicked. They're going to be 3 and whatever. And they're going to be terrible. And it just sucks that we have to play them right off the bat when no one's really actually have a lot of game experience. We do have game experience, but 2020 game experience in this environment, you know what I mean? To lose to them right off the bat sucks. I don't know if it's chosen to play, but still it's tough.
That really shows how much we value playing an FCS or I'm not going to go ahead and say cupcake team, but UNI or Ball State, somebody like that we can just come out and get the fundamentals down before we start hitting Big Ten football.
We need to go through the motions a little bit.
Kinks out. And and I really think that would have helped Spencer Petras too. Watching him on Saturday, there was a lot of times that you were he's not necessarily there, but you're like, holy shit, this kid's gonna be good. Like you could tell, he's got the poise, he's got everything. You could tell he was a little, I don't want to say trigger happy, that's not the right word, but
he had happy feet.
And then you could tell he ate his Wheaties. He had some overthrows and whatnot. And that's going to happen with those young quarterbacks. So I get that. But, there's also times you saw him dropping dimes in there that, we didn't necessarily see with Nate Stanley. I think he's got that different element to him where he's got that touch, where he can fit it in between a linebacker and a safety kind of thing that, Nate, with all his positive qualities he didn't necessarily have that ability where he more so had the arm strength to just gun it in that window. So it's a different kind of quarterback feel, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, well, I 100% agree. Any final thoughts, Beau, on this game before we move on?
No, let's move on. Let's burn that tape.
Get out of here. Let's flush it, guys. Let's flush that one. Jeez. Ugh. All right, so let's move on. We got a nice little mailbag shaping up for us. Let me go ahead and pull it up here. So We do have Beau, I think, has a nice question for us from the mailbag. So if you want to start us off, Beau,
Appreciate it.
I got it with me.
So just to start, obviously we talked about the D line here a little bit here, but looking forward to not just Northwestern, but the rest of our Big Ten games and Big Ten gauntlet here. How does Iowa's front stop the rushing attack, especially against other teams who have better rushing or running backs than Purdue? And Dill, I'll start with you on that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's very simple. Anybody that knows the defensive side of football, it starts up front with penetration. So our defensive line, in particular, the two tackles, need to get in there and penetrate and disrupt those running lanes. From there, if those guys are doing those jobs and filling gaps and doing that kind of thing, then it's our linebackers. Our linebackers are in the case where we're playing that 4-2-5, that cash position or that Leo's. They're the ones that need to step up and essentially make those tackles. I joke around about it all the time, but it's so true. Like you look at this week, our leading tackler was Jack Horner. And I always say it, if the safety is your lead tackler, there's an issue. Even if you're playing in the spread, in my opinion, there's an issue. So that's the big thing there is I think those guys up front have got to be getting penetration. Next up, what we need to see is I know we got some young guys at the linebacking spots, but we have a lot of talent there. And those guys have to step up. I think you saw it a little bit with Barrington Wade. I don't know if that was technically his first official start. I want to say it was, but I know he had got some limited minutes and whatnot. I thought he played okay. He made some mistakes that I think he's going to learn from, but he played okay. Saw a lot of Justin Jacobs in there as well. Highly regarded linebacker out of Ohio. Again, same thing with him. I think he's a young gun. He was out of position a few different times. Again, that's going to happen your first career start. So I get that. These guys, that entire front seven, they need to go back and check out this film and they got to learn from it because the road doesn't get any easier. Northwestern, a team that traditionally runs the ball well, traditionally strong up front. So, it's put up or shut up time.
Me, same question. I think I want to echo exactly what you're saying, Dill. I mean, and it really comes down to, for me, just like fundamentals. We have some young guys, in those positions that are going to see a lot of playing time this year. And, it's not like years have passed when we got guys coming back like Josie Jewell. We got guys who are in there just that can really lead and put people in the right spots and be like a true leader on the defensive squad. I mean, we are kind of still on the hunt looking for that situation. Sorry. If you're listening and not watching us, Dill tipped his can and completely disappeared. Anyways, it's fine. But yeah, we need to be more fundamentally sound on the defensive line. We need to get penetration, exactly what you said. I think that, there's guys who are out there that are eager to make a play. Like Justin Jacobs, I think is a guy that comes to mind. Just they want to make a tackle. They want to get in there and have one for a loss. They want to read the play out. But if you saw, especially a lot what Purdue did is they would run a play action situation, and like we were just classic, getting caught, like stuck, like not actually, reading run first, like a linebacker you would want them to do. And I think probably just because they were gaining so many yards with the pass. So I don't know. You can pass this out the run. You can run this out the pass. I think it's going to be one of the two. So for me, it's just tough to point out really just one thing. But I think stopping the run is huge, and we need to do it in order to have any chance against Northwestern.
Well, I really think that we need our senior leaders and even juniors too to really step up, especially, they're counting on them to lead the way and really to get some sort of push there too. So obviously a great question. Another question here on Mailbag, and Rob, we'll push this one to you. It's our buddy Jake from Mount Vernon. Looking at the stats from last week, Mir Smith-Marset didn't have a catch. Brandon Smith only had 3 catches. How do we get the ball to our 2 main senior playmakers? What are your thoughts, Rob?
Sure. So for me, and I know that you mentioned earlier, Beau, that, the offensive line did a decent job at giving us some time. we just need to have, with Spencer back there and not a lot of experience, I think that he needs to have a little bit more time to be able to throw the ball. I think that Spencer probably was looking for like one key guy on a play. And I didn't really see, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I did not really see Spencer go through like a progression where, and, not to compare him to NFL guys, but, when you see a pro in the pocket, he'll like look off and you'll see him scanning the field. And I didn't see that really too much with Spencer. I saw some play action where he would like stare down a receiver and throw him the ball, and he has great touch with the ball. He threw a few that were behind, or the commentators would say that he threw it behind. But regardless, like Sam Laporta still caught the ball, so I don't understand. It seemed like he leaned on Sam Laporta a lot, which is why obviously we have the question of why don't we get the ball to our main playmakers. And I just think it needs to be like we need to just really be able to focus more on like letting Spencer have time without people rushing in to be able to throw the ball. But you know what? At the same time, I threw my hands up when I saw that Amir Smith-Marset didn't get a catch. We're talking about the guy who the last game they played prior to this last Saturday, not to go back into Purdue, but he had 3 touchdowns. Like he was all over the place. How does he not get a catch? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think?
No, absolutely. I echo all your points. I think they're all spot on. I definitely think the offensive line can improve in a lot of areas in regards to pass protection. Specifically, Coy Cronk, I don't mean to be picking on the guy, but, there's a couple different times you saw him just flat out get bull rushed. And it's like, that can't happen. The other thing I was thinking about, to get the playmakers the ball more, in the offense and the pro style offense that they run, you simply have to establish the run. Now, as far as that goes, you guys might be saying, well, Dylan, Iowa did that versus Purdue. What the hell happened? Okay, yeah, they did.
I don't really know if we did, though.
See, yes and no. I think not to the standard that we want to establish the run, but I think you saw Goodson out there making some good plays and whatnot, and setting us up for some play action and that kind of thing. Now, the other kicker that I saw, or that I noticed, was you saw Iowa pretty much go to that deep shot right away, and Spencer, the young gun, overthrew him by, it wasn't even that much.
Like 5 yards.
Yeah. Like, so nothing terrible, nothing that can't be adjusted. But one, we didn't go back to that. And two, what I would have preferred to see, in my opinion, is see some of those dip and dunk passes first. Let him get his feet wet, get a couple receptions under his belt, even if they're, 4 or 5 yards a pop, like that's fine. I think Purdue, you saw those 2 deep safeties for them. I think they were preparing for the deep passes and the deep balls and that kind of thing. So, which isn't typical that you see from, our offense. So I think those little dip and dunk passes that teams love to use on us, like you're going to see Northwestern do it all day long Saturday, because Pat Fitzgerald knows the Iowa defense like the back of his hand. So.
And who does the dink and ducks the best? The Patriots when Tom Brady played for them. What do you do? Well, 5 yard out, 5 yard dunk, 5 yard here, and then hit the home run slammer.
Exactly. What does that do to not just even like a pro level quarterback like Tom Brady, but those new guys coming in? That boosts their confidence. It's like, okay, this is slowing the game down.
Yep.
A Big Ten football game isn't as fast anymore. So I think that's huge. Let him get his feet wet, kind of thing.
Well, and I think the first play of the game too, or offensive series for us, we had the first play was a 6 yard a pass. I can't remember who caught that, but I agree with you, and I really agree with you too, Rob. I feel like we didn't utilize the run game as much as what we usually do, or what we should have to set up the play action pass, because I think Iowa
they kept fumbling.
Well, Iowa quarterbacks really excel when they do that bootleg action out, a 5 yard pass, or get a corner 7 route too. You usually see somebody wide open there. But
let me ask you guys this: when it comes to like establishing the run game, making sure that we get the playmakers the ball. I thought of this, and do you think it has? So one of the things that I thought of as a possible answer is like, well, what do we think about the play calling? But I didn't think the play calling was bad. But what I did think is that we tended to run, I thought, a lot of spread. What if we brought those in when we modified a few of those formations with like a tight end or a double tight, situation, or we had, two running backs in the backfield in a shotgun formation, less receivers. Obviously it's easier for the defense to cover, but or maybe pull somebody back to help us protect Spencer Petras a little bit, just give him a little bit more time.
I think
Your thoughts on that? Or, I mean, I'm talking about maybe too deep into the strategy of the game. But
I think hindsight's 20/20, to be honest,
Yeah.
Rob. Like, and again, that goes back to scheduling, right? It's like, hey, if we could have those first couple games against your MAC teams, against your UNIs, those teams, it's like, gosh, we could really try these out and really see what's going to be best for this team. Honestly, I think the game plan was, hey, let's go and let's see what works, and we can utilize what works for the rest of the season and build on it.
Right.
Perfect. Well, let's see here. So let's see if we got another question from the mailbag. It looks like we do. I'll go ahead and read this one. So, and this kind of goes back to a little bit of what we were talking, but as far as the schedule goes, if Iowa loses here against this coming weekend, Northwestern, do Iowa fans throw in the towel?
No, we do not. I would have thrown in the towel with the rest of, the Hawkeye mafia if Wisconsin didn't get diagnosed with COVID. Because I think more so than any year, the Big Ten is going to be a gauntlet this year. There's going to be teams falling left and right. I don't think 2 losses right off the bat necessarily gets you out of the race for a Big Ten West championship.
It's pretty tough to say with a shortened season. I mean, the cards really have to fall. But to be honest with you, I think the pressure's on now with Iowa that they have to win out, especially knowing that there's only 8-9 games total in the Big Ten this year. I think definitely the pressure's on, but why throw in the towel? It's one game. I think they can still run the conference.
And that's my point too. You look at the beginning of the season, Iowa and Wisconsin were expected to be, a couple of the top dogs along with Minnesota and I almost said Nebraska, but let's not get crazy. So Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin were expected to be the top dogs. Well, Minnesota lost this weekend as well. So we look at that. And then you look at Wisconsin, who's going to be playing these next 3 weeks with their 4th string quarterback.
Yeah.
So, and obviously they're not playing this weekend because the game got canceled. But even then, the next 2 weeks they're going to have to play without their quarterback due to the Big Ten rule that you have to sit out 3 games after testing positive. So,
which I think is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely.
21 days when the general population has to stay away from work for 14 days. What?
Right. And then, is that even a thing anymore? Do they have to stay away for a full 2 weeks now?
Yeah, they do. 10 work days, 14 days.
Yep.
Yeah, I would they stay away for 3. So for us, it's as soon as you have 2 negative tests. And that's what it is for the SEC too.
Yep.
And it's like, that's how it should be.
Yep. Agreed.
I
But
agree with that too. I also,
Politics aside.
Yeah, I mean, and we could talk about how the Big Ten's handling COVID all day. I mean, they kind of were pretty wishy-washy on it to begin with, and I don't even want to get into it. But
Horrible. They've done absolutely horrid. And okay, yeah, we don't want to get into it, but I'm going to get into it, damn it.
Okay, why not?
So the fact that they canceled the season like 2 days after releasing that revised schedule where they had 2 or 3 bye weeks included in there, like this is clearly biting them in the ass right now. Like, and we can't put all the blame on Kevin Moore and the commissioner because, he's doing what the presidents and the chancellors at all the universities are telling him to do. I get that. But these presidents only, said, all right, let's play football when Fox and those Big Ten, TV distributors came back and said, okay, well, if you guys aren't going to play, then we want our $400 gajillion dollars back. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I think it's safe to play. Like, let's play. Asinine. Yeah. They've handled it poorly. They suck. F you.
I think they kind of showed their cards. I think that the decision came down to a lot more than whether or not it was safe to actually play the game of football. I think it came down to a lot of external factors. And I think because they said they weren't going to do it, and then other big conferences did decide to play, and then now they're like, okay, well, we actually are going to play this fall. It's like, okay, well, you guys obviously, and hey, you know what they say, like things with COVID, when it happens like this, you know, they're very fluid. Things can change at the drop of a hat, but still, like, I think that they could have kind of maybe waited to see like what other conferences were going to do. I think they're trying to like be a leader in like what things are going to happen. And everyone was like, no. And so, you know,
I think it's going to hurt recruiting too, to be honest with you. I mean, having us have a short schedule against the SEC and ACC, who's going to play basically a full schedule. It's like, okay, would you rather go to a Big Ten school, or would you rather go to a school that's going to play, 12 games a year, and it's going to be good football all year round? Granted, I don't think the SEC or ACC football is good, but I mean, just looking at it from an 18-year-old perspective.
Right. And so I look at it too, where, I'm thankful to be a fan of Iowa and follow recruiting where, Iowa got 95% of its recruiting done before COVID hit. So if Iowa hadn't been so prepared on the front end, we might be panicking a little bit. But, Iowa's only received one decommit, in the midst of all this. And that kid had already decommitted once and had never visited Iowa City. So it's like, the fact that a quarterback from Florida ends up in Iowa without visiting, slim to none anyways. Right. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, good points all around, guys. Let's do one more mailbag question, and then that'll kind of lead us into this Saturday's game against Northwestern. So I got one for you guys. How does our D-line, after seeing how they played this last weekend, right? How does our D-line get pressure on Ramsey?
I'll start this one. Well, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, Dill, but honestly, I think they play a fundamental sound football. And again, I think the senior leadership needs to really figure out how they can get pressure on this guy so he doesn't just sit in the pocket. Because this guy, he's proven that he's a good passer. He's proven that he's a good runner. He's not going to be one of those guys that's going to sit in the pocket and fuck around. He's going to go out and get it done. We've seen that in Indiana. He had a 8-5 record last year as a starter. Okay, and now they go and they put up 43 points against a bad Maryland team. But I'm telling you, we have to play fundamental, sound football. We got to be smart about it, but we also have to figure out how we can create pressure and get them off their run game, or else Northwestern's going to have a heyday with Iowa.
Oh, absolutely. And I kind of touched on it earlier, but again, it comes down to the defensive line getting penetration. That's huge for anything, because if the defensive line is getting penetration, disrupting the quarterback's rhythm and that kind of thing, that allows our chance for linebackers to make plays. That allows us to have those jailbreak blitz type plays and, make some noise and cause some turnovers and that kind of thing. So it all starts up front, and the defensive line has to get penetration.
Yeah, I agree. I also would say, I'd like to see us blitz more. I'd like to see some stunts. I'd like to see, what we saw last year when we had a lot of success with that cash position, where it was like a kind of a hybrid, almost like a second strong safety situation. I'd like to see someone like that, maybe, coming off the edge, or, like running up to the line of scrimmage right at the, when he hikes the ball and then falling back into coverage. You know what I mean?
And I think you're going to see that a lot this week, Rob. I think that obviously we were playing the pass last week with knowing how good of receivers that Purdue had. But I think this week with a run-heavy team that likes, essentially just like Iowa, likes to throw out of the run, I think we're going to see a lot of that.
Yep. I agree.
Oh, and actually, before you do go to that, Rob, I forgot we did have one more fun mailbag question. This one came from Alex, and he currently resides in North Liberty, Iowa. And he says, guys, why do the Hawks always crush dreams?
Rob, you want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. It's all a part of being a fan. I will say that. And that's like the nice, warm and fuzzy answer, where it's like, hey, you know what? Let's go watch our favorite team. And they don't do well, there's always next year. But for me, it's a little different.
And then you got the psychos that talk about it every Thursday night.
And we're like, why didn't we run the ball more? Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like how I am. But, look, for some reason, and it's weird, and every team like has their superstitions, and every team has like a thing that they say, that's like, oh man, and ours is, and Dill, you probably know it, you probably could say it, but just like we're gonna win when we shouldn't, and we're gonna lose when we shouldn't, and that's just about how it goes, and this one I'm hoping is the one that we shouldn't have lost. Unfortunately, it's the first game of the season, and it's really unpredictable. Another interesting thing about being a fan of Iowa is that every single game, it seems like it literally could go either way. It literally comes down to a handful of plays. And so it's
literally,
for me, I've, watching the Hawks for however many, 3, 4, or 5 years now. It's just like, for me, it's almost like, should we be employing a different sort of strategy when it comes to our play calls, when it comes to how we address certain situations? It seems like Kirk Ferentz wants to kind of, instead of like playing it a little bit, he plays risk averse a lot. So he doesn't really run a 2-minute drill at the end of the half, like we would think that he would want to. And just things like that, where it's like, just to give us a little edge, like he does things differently. And like, it's just, old school, obviously, is the oldest coach in longest tenured coach in the United States, but when it comes to college football. But I mean, it's just like, it's hard to really put into words like exactly why we are the way we are, but like this is the way that it is, and it's just like hard to fathom that. So I guess I can sympathize with the question. I don't even know if I answered the question, but let me toss it to Beau. What do you think?
I think you guys said it all. I don't think my input's needed. I drink a beer. Everybody, please just drink a beer. God damn it.
I feel like at this point, after my answer, it would be like, at no point in your rambling, incoherent response, we award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Oh God, Rob. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just part of being a fan. I think we all obviously, and those of you following the page for the most part, except for like our family, I'm assuming, they're all psycho diehards just like us. And I compare it to being like a Cubs fan. But for those of you that are actually Cubs fans out there, look what happened in 2016. So you're saying there's a chance it could happen. Stay the course.
It's a great time to be a Hawkeye fan because every game is unpredictable, and which keeps you guessing.
Absolutely.
And
no question, I'm going out at Kinnick Stadium at the ripe age of 54, just heart attack on the spot.
Isn't that fun though? Like, don't you love those toss-ups? We lost to Purdue, but I kind of like the 50-50 aspect of a bunch of these games. I honestly, I think I live off of it and I thrive off of it.
Okay, totally unrelated to Hawkeye football and Hawkeyes in general, but those of you listening, just take a little bit of life advice here. So there's a little story from my grandfather. He's still kicking and everything. I don't know if he listens to the show or not, but he told me a story once where he's got some heart issues and some health issues and whatnot. And he's like, he asked his doctor about taking the little blue pill. And I think we all know what I'm talking about when we talk about the little blue pill. And so he's like, well, doc, don't you think me doing that, can't that kill me? And the doctor looks him in the eye and he's like, well, Bob, what way would you rather go out? What way would I rather go out than to watch my Hawkeyes break my heart? I don't know. I just don't know.
Oh, man.
Dude, that's a great question.
What? Not only do you get some insight about the team this year when you listen to our podcast, but you also get
life advice.
That's right.
So we'll take it.
Always take the life advice from the guy at the bar drinking Tallboys. It's gonna be.
I was gonna say, I did want to say, it's kind of nice that it's fitting that our podcast is Hawkeyes and Tallboys, because there's nothing that pairs better with watching the Hawkeyes than beer. So
nothing at all.
1,000%, 100%, whatever. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on. So guys, Whether or not we like it, we have another game this weekend, and we better be prepared because Northwestern went out and won last week. So they're 1-0, we're 0-1. And I guess I could send it over to Beau. Why don't you kind of break us down and tell us about what we got going on this Saturday?
Yeah, so Northwestern, to be honest with you, I mean, they played let's just go ahead and say bad Maryland team. But to be honest, you look at Maryland's starting lineup, who's their quarterback? Tua's younger brother. Tua Tagovailoa's younger brother. So a lot of hype around this Maryland team. He goes out and throws 3 picks. So it's like, okay, what? Okay. So
there's a reason he's not at Alabama. He's at Maryland.
But anyways, I mean, to be honest with you, Northwestern did everything that we thought Iowa would do. They established the run game. They did a pretty good job in their pass game. Honestly, their offensive plan was good. Defense, honestly, I think kind of got lucky with those 3 picks. They were all overthrows. The defenders or the D-backs really didn't make too much of plays other than going up to grab the ball. But to be honest with you, I thought their offensive game plan was right. And, I mean, that's exactly what you can expect from Pat Fitzgerald. And I think that he's going to dial it up for Iowa this week.
You know, and Beau, the only thing there I didn't like that you said is you called, Northwestern's defensive effort lucky. The fact that they caused 4 turnovers, held Maryland well below 100 rushing yards. The defense did its job. You don't win a game 43-3 without the defense playing out of their mind. So, I think that's a big point there where, the Hawkeye offense is going to have to come to play because this Northwestern defense is the real deal.
Well, I think their linebackers are good. I think their linebackers are solid. I just don't think that Maryland's a great team. I think that speaks to how bad Maryland is. I don't think that they can get anything going offensively to where, yes, okay, you have to credit Northwestern's defense. I do get that. But I think they got lucky with a couple of their turnovers.
Sure, and okay, that's fair, but let's not overlook Northwestern's defense.
I'm not going to overlook them one bit, especially after losing Purdue. I'm not going to overlook them.
Yeah. Well, you got to take anything seriously when you experience what we experienced last week. But no, so if you remember from last year, we played against the Northwestern team and we beat them 20-0. And they did have a great defense, but it was sort of a grinded out effort by our 2019 Hawkeyes. But obviously we have a pretty young running back committee. We have a young receiving core. Last year, Tyler Goodson ran the ball 11 times for 58 yards, 5.3 a carry. Mekhi Sargent, 15 carries for 46 yards and 3.1 a carry. They held us to 123 yards rushing as a team, and 179 yards passing. However, our defense was even more stout last year, and obviously we're talking about last year's team, but we held them to 64 yards rushing and 138 yards passing. So
I remember this game as Tyrone Tracy's coming out game. That was this was the game where we had that crossing pattern. He spun out and ran all the way to the end zone.
Yep.
So I have a really good feeling that this week we're going to try and see what we can do about exploiting the middle of the field, see what we can do about getting our big-time playmakers involved, but then also incorporating the run game.
Absolutely.
Yep. And it looks like Northwestern. So let's talk about what they have, some possible weapons that you might see on Saturday and what we're going to need to do to kind of contain them. So let me send it over to Dill. What do you think about this Northwestern team?
Simply put, we look at, at the QB spot. They got Peyton Ramsey, who last week went 23 for 30, 212 yards and a touchdown. What does that tell you right off the bat? He makes good decisions. His receivers are getting open with only 7 incompletions. So, and no turnovers to go along with that as well. So, and looking at him too, like Beau pointed out earlier, is he had for the most part, a heck of a career at IU too, at Indiana. So, he's going to be dangerous. I think that's what this Northwestern team was missing last year, was this game manager kind of quarterback that can make plays on his feet as well, which, you think about the Northwestern teams of past that have been pains in Iowa's ass, and this is going to be one of those teams once again. Go ahead.
Nope, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, other than that, you look at their rushing attack. I know we talked about it a little bit last year, but it's going to be a two-headed monster once again with Drake Anderson and Isaiah Bauer. Drake Anderson, 10 carries, 103 yards, 1 touchdown last weekend. And I know Beau mentioned, a big chunk of that was from one play, but still, nonetheless, you look at that average and, he's going to be a player. So he's going to be one we got to look out for. And Isaiah Bowser is kind of more of that bruiser back. He had 23 carries, 70 yards, a touchdown, and then a receiving touchdown as well to go with that. So offensively, when you think of Pat Fitzgerald coach teams, you think tough, you think discipline, you think a lot of the things that you think when you're playing Iowa. They're going to be a thorn in your side and they're going to be around the entire game. And then once again, Northwestern has a pretty stout defense. Like I said, they caused 4 turnovers last week as well and got some good linebackers and some returning guys on that defensive line as well. So this isn't going to be an easy out, and I know that's not what Hawk fans want to hear. Northwestern traditionally, like Purdue, has our number. So heck of a 1-2 punch out of the gate for us. But this is a game that Iowa can win if we limit our mistakes, limit those mental mistakes.
And you kept saying thorn in the side. And who has been our thorn in the side it seems like last 2 or 3 years? Isaiah Bowser. That guy's just run all over our defense. He's just been a freaking stud. And now that Northwestern has a brand new offensive coordinator, what do? You go pick up a transfer quarterback, and you get a pretty solid quarterback out of the deal too. So they are going to be pretty solid. And you're right, Dylan. I think they're going to be a thorn in our side this weekend.
It's going to be tough. I think when you look at the way that Northwestern was built last year, they had a lot of hype. They had a lot of they did win some games. They were competitive. Unlike their teams of the past, and they were missing a quarterback. Now they went and got that quarterback. Isaiah Bowser is a guy who is gonna be in the NFL. He's that type of a guy. He's 6'1", 220. He can catch the ball pretty well. He does run behind a decent offensive line with Northwestern. They have some big guys, but at the same time, I feel like that Northwestern is trying to build a contender the way that Wisconsin is trying to do.
Yep.
They're a ground and pound defensive sort of team, and they're not trying to spread the ball out. They don't want a quarterback who wants to toss the ball 400 yards a game. They just want to ground and pound, and that's the way that their style is, and that's our style too. Now we're a little bit more, I think, flexible in the way that we play, but with this Northwestern team, I think what scares me the most is just that we just let Purdue run, do whatever they wanted pretty much on offense. David Bell would catch anything he could against us, and it was completely fine apparently. And then they had their running back, and what was his name, Hank
Xander Horvath.
Yep.
Horvath. Mm-hmm. He hurdled a dude on his way to an 11-yard run. You know what I mean? And I was like, who is this guy? He looks like he's Ezekiel Elliott. But anyways, I digress. I'm worried about it. It kind of reminds me of a segment that we like to talk about with it's called Good Vibes, Bad Vibes. So if I can segue straight into that, I would say that is my bad vibe. They look like a more stout, dangerous Purdue, for lack of a better term. I don't think they're going to throw the ball as much as Purdue does, but they have guys on the offensive side that we have to contain in order to have a chance to win this game. And I think it's going to be tough. I'll save my good vibe, and let's toss it over to Beau. What do you think about good vibes, bad vibes going into Northwestern?
All right, so I'm with you. I'll start out with the bad vibe. So I will go with the D line. I think that these guys got to get way better. And to be honest with you, it's the line of scrimmage. How about that? So our D line's got to be solid. Our O line's got to be really solid against a pretty solid up front and middle of the Northwestern defense. But my good vibe is going to be a little different than what you guys are thinking. Last week we saw our guy Torrey Taylor, Australian punter, come out and boom some punts. And if you talk about a Big Ten game, you're talking about the game of inches, right? Field position. Who's going to win based off of field position? I think Torrey Taylor is going to have a big-time game and a big-time part of this game just due to the fact that he's a freaking solid punter. And we finally have a solid punter on our team that we can trust to pin him deep.
We got a punter. We haven't had that for a few years, guys. So that's pretty big news.
I do like Michael Sleep Dalton. I will give him that credit last year.
Hey, don't sleep on Sleep Dalton.
We love our Aussie boys, don't we?
That's right. The Aussies are good punters. I love it. No, I like your guys. I like your guys' thinking. So my good vibe, it's a little different. So I'm going with our rushing attack. I know I touched on it a little bit earlier. Obviously, you got our two-headed monster. But another guy I was very impressed with in his limited touches was Ivory Kelly-Martin. You know, he's got that potential that we always knew he had. And, you know, he's been hindered by, you know, being, you know, dropped down in the depth chart, injury and whatnots. But I really like what I saw out of him. And then obviously with Goodson and Sargent, you know what you're going to get out of those guys. Those guys are two solid Big Ten backs. So I think, you know, just overall the rushing attack, I just have a good feeling. I just have a warm and fuzzy feeling about it. Bad vibe is going to be our consistency and our discipline. And that typically comes from those penalties. And that's not something you see with the Kirk Ferentz coach team. So it's got me worried. You know, if we come out against Northwestern, we have 10 penalties, we're not going to win the ball game. We come out versus Northwestern, we turn over the ball 2-3 times, we're not going to win the ball game. So, I mean, that just is what it is. So that's my bad vibes. Rob, go ahead with your good vibe, bud.
So, good vibes, I will say, is looking at the way that we played this last game against Purdue. I think that was a very winnable game. It's too bad that it didn't happen, but I think that, you know, we needed to get that out of our system. So I think that 1 week of having to deal with this terrible feeling of losing to Purdue at the end of the game, when it seemed like we were pretty much in control the entire game. We were ahead at half, and then the second half kind of got away from us. We had maybe one stop situation where we gave them the ball back at the end of the game and they came down and won. You know what I mean? Like, we did everything that we should have done, and we should have been up by more at that point. And it would have been like last year where they were trying to score at the end of the game just to kind of screw over all the degenerates who bet on the spread, you know? But like, going into this weekend, these guys, you know that they heard it from the coaches. You know that they've been watching it all the week in film. You know, Coy Cronk's been watching himself get blown up more than once, watching himself false start in the red zone. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are going to get it together. This is a good group of guys. I think we're more talented than Northwestern. So that is my good vibe. I do think that Tyler Goodson is going to be a better back than Isaiah Bowser.
I hope you're right. And to be honest with you, just like every other Big Ten game, especially Iowa Northwestern, it's going to be a freaking battle to the end. And just so you know, Rob, and all those listeners out there, The spread is at 2.5. Iowa at 2.5, and the over/under is at 46 for total points. So 23 points per team in terms of that. Rob, I guess I'll start out with you in terms of predictions. So Iowa Northwestern is going to be 2:30 kick, Big Ten Network in Iowa City. They are going to do the wave at the end of the first quarter, so prepare to have your Kleenexes close to you. Get that ready, get that arm ready to freaking wave. But Rob, what do you think about this weekend? And what about the Hawks? Do you like Iowa or do you like Northwestern here?
Guys, this opportunity comes once every 6 or 7 years, depending on if there's a leap year. But the Iowa Hawkeye football game this year is on Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So it's too bad it's 2020, because I would love to be in Kinnick Stadium, dressed up crazy, going nuts against Northwestern. But still, it is a cool occasion. It's a 2:30 afternoon game, so that would be perfect for tailgating weather. But too bad that's not going to happen. As far as the score goes, obviously you mentioned the spread 2.5. You also got to look at the over/under at 46.5. You got to look at what they put up last week against Maryland, which was 43 points. This Northwestern team. You also got to look at the Iowa Hawkeyes, who, in my opinion, could have had, another 14 points. It would have been like a 34-24 type game, unfortunately. So, taking all that in consideration, I do think that the Hawkeyes are going to come out with a win. We beat them last year 20-0. Our team is a little bit different this year, but I do think that we finally find the win column this week. And so, like, my prediction is going to be we win 30-14.
Nice.
So I'm going with the spread. I think that a lot of people are reading into these first games, and if anyone knows the Iowa Hawkeyes, I mean, it does take us a sec. Like, it takes us a game or so, to figure it out. And I don't think that they're really. I mean, hey, I'm not a Vegas expert, but I'm just saying, like, I know that they need some time to figure it out, and I think that I'm hoping and I would be betting that this weekend they figure it out.
Rob, I like everything you said there. Traditionally, I am known as the Iowa optimist. Last year thinking we were going to go 12-0 and whatnot. Woo! And that's right. Woo! After this first game, though, I'm not so optimistic. And after seeing Northwestern, they passed the eye test, watching them guys on film. They play good football. They present, two different dynamics, similar to a Purdue team. So I definitely think Iowa could win this game, but I think having a sophomore quarterback, still a first-year starter, some inexperience on the defensive side of the ball, it's tough for me, guys, because I really think, it's one of those things where Iowa's going to win this game, but it's not going to be by much. So I'm going to go with 23-17 that I was going to cover the spread. And again, it's going to be one of those close games to the very, very end. And it's going to piss a lot of us off. We're going to have some hot takes after it, but we're going to pull it out and we're going to get the W.
Good for you. Good for you. So on my take here, from some insider sources here, I've heard that the Iowa coaching staff had a little bit of, yes, sir, fans with sources. They had a little bit of fire under their feet on Sunday. They watched the film. Everyone was a little disgusted, a little pissed off, and so they all came to practice right away on Tuesday, and they were ready to go.
Nice.
They had a good weekend. They've so far had a pretty good week of practice. And they know they should have beat Purdue. Looking at the film, from what I've heard, they don't think that Northwestern looks like a challenge to them. Oh, they are very confident, very confident about what's going on this weekend. And I think that they're going to have some fun this weekend. So I'm not going to say this is going to be a blowout by any means, but I think that Iowa's going to win by more than 2.5 points. I think, Northwestern showed that they can be explosive. And like they usually are, they're going to hang around a little bit. I can see this thing getting really close, but kind of more of a shootout, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay.
And I'm seeing the Hawkeyes win 35-21.
High scoring.
Right? And I
think it's going to be high scoring too. I feel like there's a lot of pent up frustration with us turning the ball over last week.
I was going to say, I'm the only one that picked the under, which is just nuts to me. But, even thinking about it now after you guys made your picks, what's the classic Kirk Ferentz quote? It's, his teams improve the most every single year from week 1 to week 2.
Yep.
So I don't expect to see anything different this weekend.
Well, and one thing too that I do like that you think it's low scoring is that I think that they're going to incorporate more of the run game. So they're going to go see a lot more clock coming off, and they're just going to keep on running the ball. Let's get those stats up, and let's try and get the hell out of here with a win, even if it's close, right?
And that's what I meant earlier. Like, that's the way Kirk Ferentz does it. It's time of possession. It's running the ball. It's just like not giving them a lot of chances to come back, to have a quick hitter, 2-minute drill situation where they can close the gap on us. So I think that's going to be key in a game like this, especially if this turns into a defensive battle. Now, I know that we're not picking it to turn into a defensive battle, but I mean, it has in the past, and I feel like it has the makings of possibly doing it again. And I'm just contradicting about what I just said. But regardless, guys, we forgot, and we need to get into this. What is our depth chart looking like this week against Northwestern? Looks like there were some changes on the offensive line. We want to talk about that.
The big one we were talking about, I know, is you saw Mark Kallenberger move into that left guard spot that was taken up by Cole Manworth the week before. Let me see if they got it all updated here for us.
So they got Shooter at right guard and Coy Cronk right tackle. Linderbaum's at center. Then we got Cole Banwart left guard, Alaric Jackson left tackle. But then looks like Kallenberger they got listed behind Shooter at right guard. And I don't know if that's going to be – if they're going to have him start or if they are going to just start to rotate guys the way they used to do on the D line.
Yeah, I think they will. Honestly, I think that they're going to start out with their regular 5. We'll see that, but I do think that Kallenberger is going to get in there at right guard, right or left guard, depending on how the play is going to be from both of our guard play right away. But honestly, I think we're going to see a lot of Mark Kallenberger, especially after the second series when we see him get in against that defense of Northwestern.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Other than that, Rob, it looks pretty standard. We got the, Brandon Smith, Tyrone Tracy at the Z, it's the X. I always forget which one's which. Laporta, Sean Byer, left tackle, Alaric Jackson, Jack Blum. So you mainly see Alaric there, left guard, Cole Banwart. So look for that 4-man rotation between Cole Banwart, Cody Ince, Mark Kallenberger, and Kyler Schott at the guard spots. And then right tackle, you got Coy Cronk as well. I'm trying to see any other big changes. At the linebacker spot, you got officially Barrington Wade starting.
He's in that cash spot, or Leo.
Okay, and so here's a little difference. So Nick Neiman played the will linebacker last week, and so they're going to bring him into the middle and then throw Justin Jacobs at the weak side. So he's going to be playing the will. So that's a big difference there.
Justin Jacobs, redshirt freshman. I'm excited to see him make some noise this game.
Same. And I definitely think he had, he had his glimpses, like I said, in that game versus Purdue, but very excited to see that young man bring it all together. And, that's kind of part of what I was going to say. Our keys to really victory this weekend, guys. It's, it's going to be simple. It's going to be disciplined. We got to keep the penalties down. We got to keep the ball in possession. So we got to win that time of possession. And so that involves having no turnovers and then establishing the run. We do those things along with playing good defense, and we're going to win this ball game.
Yeah, I would agree. That all sounds great on paper.
That's right. Now they got to go out and do it.
That's right.
So we got our predictions in. We got this game covered. I think we pretty much covered everything we want to cover, guys. We can close out this episode like we always do, in true Hawkeye fashion with some victory polka. So give me 1 second and let me go ahead and be able to share my
Oh, he's got it. Hey, we just want to say thanks again to all the listeners, all the fans. Continue to share our stuff and rate us on iTunes and on whatever platforms we got out there. But really appreciate you guys tuning in, and thanks everybody for the mailbag questions every week.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate everything. Here we go. Take it away, Hawkeyes.